What it do, family and friends? Welcome back to the Church of Black Power. And today we're going to be speaking on Cornel West. Shout out to the Black Alpha Network. Our brother was the first in the new black media to interview a presidential candidate. And this presidential candidate just so happened to be Cornel West. Now, I've already made videos about Cornel West. I've made videos about his reparations and how he believes and wrote in his book how he believed that social programs would work out a lot better than reparations would. I spoke about all that. However, I want you to hear this man. When Alpha talks to him and speaks to him about us, how this man is so, I want to say, the man is so geared. He's so dedicated. That's the proper word that I wanted to say. He's so dedicated to take the conversation and make it about other people. Now, you're on a pro-black podcast. You're on a pro-black program. But yet, when our dear brother, Alpha, is centering the conversation around foundational Black American freedmen, then everything must be a but. I know, brother, but. I know, brother, but. I know. I also want us to, every single time. So we're going to go through the interview. And then I'm going to, at the end of the interview, take you through the plan that Cornel West has for reparations and his campaigning of, how do you say, we're just going to look at his campaign. Let's put it like that. I'm sorry, I had a little brain fart for a second. But we're going to look at his campaign. And we're going to look at what he is offering on this campaign. And also, we're going to look at his policy for immigration and what he wants to do with these illegals. And you won't be surprised. You won't be surprised. So let's start this off. We're not going to start at the beginning because at the beginning there's a whole lot of, he does what Michael Eric Dyson loved to do. But Michael Eric Dyson is a carbon copy of, I don't want to say a carbon copy, the way he speaks is a carbon copy of Cornel West, right? So Michael Eric Dyson, he'll be in conversation and he likes to bring up hip hop artists. Well, that's no different from what Cornel West does whenever we're having conversations. Cornel West loves to speak about the jazz and the soul of the black man and the black woman, so I there's only so much of Cornel West I can take, so we're going to move past that and go on into some more of the meatier stuff and then talk about it then. However, I want to make this disclaimer. I am not taking any shots at the way our dear brother Alpha did this interview, because it was actually a very informative interview if you listen to it. If you really listen. Some people might think that maybe he should have held his feet to the fire a little bit more, but the truth of the matter is he let him speak. And by letting a person speak, you figure out what kind of person they are. So I really applaud our brother and his interview style, because if he didn't allow him to speak without interruption, then it could be claimed that what is being said is being misinterpreted. And we don't want that. We want to take what you say at face value when you're coming to our community talking about supporting. So I wanted to make sure that there won't be no confusion when I say this is not, well, I would have did this, I would have did that. No. This is me going through the interview and critiquing Cornel West on his answers. Now, I may throw in, I would want to know this question as well, but that is not a slight at our dear brother Alpha in any way. The way he did the interview was immaculate, and I salute the brother. Now, with that being said, let's get off into this interview.
The economy to the edge. They got off for free. Yes, they got subsidies.
They wrote them a big check, didn't they?
That big trillions of dollars coming out of the Federal Reserve and the government. You say, hey, what's going? That's war priorities.
That's a good point. That's a good one.
War priorities.
I always tell them, matter of fact, since we started off talking about music, let me quote the great Tupac Shakur. He said it best. Tupac said, when you start talking about America, they got money for war, but can't feed the poor. Okay? Then we can flip over to the great Nasir Jones, and he said there shouldn't be nobody homeless. How can the president fix other problems when he ain't fixed home yet? And this is what us Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, have been saying for the longest, is that they have money for everybody. That is even sometimes domestic, but also abroad and domestic, both. But whenever it comes to us, the people who built this country, you don't really see that emphasis as you were speaking of. And I always tell people like this, there is a Black grassroots agenda now where, like you said, we're speaking on reparations. I'm one of them. And there's a lot of people who take reparations so serious because what we have done in terms of building this country, what we have done in terms of maintaining, sustaining, and elevating this country, all the great parts, everybody flies here too. I've lived outside the country, traveling around the world. People are watching us, this particular lineage, heritage, and culture, and they want to come here. And America has made godly amounts of money off of us. We receive nothing, but like as you say, Wall Street's getting the money. War, manufacturing companies, everybody's getting it. What are some of the pushbacks you get being an independent candidate, being a third party? Because I know one thing, the Republicans and Democrats will fight each other all day long about things that serve the people. They can't ever agree. Soon as you talk about war, they agree. And then soon as you start talking about a third party candidate, then all of a sudden they become tag team partners. What are some of the resistance and blowbacks that you have seen and hurdles and obstacles that you've encountered by being an independent third party candidate for the 2024 election?
Before he starts, our brother Alpha made a very great point. America makes a lot of money off of immigration. America makes a lot of money off of illegal immigration as well, corporate-wise. However, when it comes to immigration as a business, America makes a lot of money, and it's only attractive to come to this country because of the things that Black Americans have done and performed in this country. A lot of people want to be American, and in their eyes, what being American is Black American culture. Because America I don't want to say America don't have a culture, because America's culture is looting, pillaging, and murdering, killing, and all that other stuff. However, when you look at what people think is American culture around the world globally, on a global scale, 9 times out of the 10, they're speaking about something that comes out of Black culture, Black American culture. So that is a great point that he just made, that people come here in order to be a part of a culture that really belongs to us. And America makes all this money off of their want to do so, only for us to get the shaft of the stick. But let's continue.
Brother, I announced 6 months ago they've been coming at me first with bows and arrows and after even more intensely. But you know what? That's a good sign. That's for me a compliment. That's like a black freedom fighter being on the list of the FBI. That's a high compliment. You must be doing something right and telling the truth about oppressed people if the powers that be and those in the status quo at the very top are trying to come at you. And a lot of it's personal and then it's political and all different kind of attacks and assaults. Hey, that's par for the course. That's par for the course. And
I just want to say this. The reason why they came at Cornel West and they're coming at Cornel West so, I guess you could say, viciously, if you want to call it that, because it's not really how I see it. But if he's saying they're coming viciously, I'm going to take him at his word. The reason why they switched up on Cornel West is because Cornel West switched up on them. Cornel West is the socialist that Bernie Sanders wished he could be. And Cornel West has been a socialist damn near his whole career, if I can remember correctly. So when he started speaking up for the Democratic Party, that was a great benefit to the Democratic Party. And when he started supporting Bernie Sanders, that was a great benefit for Bernie Sanders. So the fact that he decides that he wants to now run and then choose not to run under the Democratic Party, he hurt some feelings. And as a business move, they're going to go after him, because you're going to take away from some people really do like Cornel West. So you're going to take away from the votes that the Democrats need in order to beat Trump. And this is what's going to happen. So this is why they're coming at him so vigorously if they're doing that. It's because of the fact that you have decided to stop licking boots in this party and then go somewhere else as an independent, whatever you could say, because independent is still a party. Go somewhere else and decide to run for president. So yeah, they're definitely gonna be going after you. There's no question about that.
yeah, and I want to get back to Brother Tupac though, because Tupac means so much to me. We used to have Timbuktu Learning Center, National Black United Front, 415 Atlantic Avenue, House of Lord Pentecostal Church, Reverend Herbert Daltrey, that we founded that. And I used to teach every Wednesday. Tupac was on the front row.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I like
every
that.
Wednesday. Ain't that deep? With Sister Finn.
I find it funny that Tupac was in the front row when you was teaching with his mother, Miss Afina Shakur. But he didn't pick up any of your thought processes, your talking points, any of that. Tupac was a militant brother. And when he spoke about the conditions and the problems of Black America, he did so as a Black American, speaking about Black American issues. But when Cornel West do these things, when Cornel West jumps in front of a microphone or jumps in front of anybody who's interviewing him, he is not doing these type of things that Tupac Shakur did. As a matter of fact, I did a broadcast showing you my first introduction to him is when he got owned by Sister Souljah. So I find it funny that you bring up Pac and how he was sitting in your classes and all this other stuff, but Pac wasn't a socialist. And when Pac talked about the black community, that's who he spoke about, the black community. He ain't talk about Bigfoot. He ain't talk about the aliens. He ain't talk about Mars. He ain't talk about Pluto. He ain't talk about none of that stuff. What he was talking about is the condition of black Americans in America as a black American. So I just find it very funny, very odd that you would mention that as if that's a badge of honor for you. If anything, I find it to be a questionable situation, because then I would have to ask, well, the student must have surpassed the teacher. So why is the teacher still speaking on the same thing that the student has shown to be bull stuff? That's just where I come from on it. Let's continue.
And you remember the Black Panther Party? He was also a member of Daltrey's church at that time. And I can see both of them sitting there. He was very young at that time. I can see those beautiful eyes that he had. Now, I didn't know he gonna be the genius that he turned out to be. You know what I mean?
Greatest rapper of all time.
That he was there with all the marvelous teachers. I was just one small teacher among others, and I was only then about 23, 24 myself, right? But he's taking in that tradition. This is what I mean by the love, insight, wisdom that's poured into you. Right. Brother Todd, you've had so much poured into you, man, and in ways that only you know. You know what I mean? Because it goes beyond language, it goes beyond things given. It's love and self-confidence and self-respect are things that sustain us from womb to tomb. And so
that's another thing that you're going to notice as well. He keeps bringing up love and all this other stuff. Love warriors and all this other stuff. Let me be very clear. There's a time for war and there's a time for peace. There is no love on the battlefield. There is no love on the battlefield. There is no love on the battlefield of war. There's just not. There's very little compassion on the battlefield. The only way that you could get compassion on the battlefield is if you surrender. Is if you surrender. Tell me where's the lie. Anybody who's been to war, please correct me if I'm wrong. But you ain't get out on that battlefield and see a bunch of flowers and rainbows. You saw bullets. You saw bombs. You saw landmines. You saw tanks. You saw fighter jets. But I don't know anybody who's been on the battlefield who told me they went to war and came back with a different perspective about war. Man, it was just so loving. It was just, wow. There was so much love out there, man. I just didn't want to come back. Not once. Not once. And if you've been overseas, if you've been to war at all, please hit my comment section and let me know. Is there any love on the battlefield? And the only type of compassion you can get on that battlefield is when you surrender. Am I telling a lie? Because the compassion is once you surrender, they're not supposed to shoot you. They're supposed to take you as prisoners of war. And that doesn't happen all the time. And that doesn't happen all the time. So I get very irritated by listening to this man every 30 seconds or so talk about loving other people. We're the most loving people. Yes, we've been the most loving people. And how did that work out for us? Let's continue.
That the whole sense of how we are able to be love warriors become crucial, because one of the ways in which the powers that be tried to keep us down is to keep us scared, full of fear, intimidated, not believing in ourselves and others, not believing we can sustain organization, so that we end up deferring to the power that be. And once you straighten up, that's what we started off singing that song by Sly. Stand, if you stand, straighten your back up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Martin King used to say, anytime, every day, people straighten their backs up, they going somewhere, because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent.
I like the way that he said that. Folks can't ride your back unless it's bent, so stand up. Black Americans have stood up. And we're not putting ourselves in anybody else's business until we get what's coming to us, what's just due to us. Our claim for reparations. We're not going to no longer allow all these other communities to ride our backs. That's the thing. And when we're in a situation like this where we have people who say one thing and then turn around and tell you that we should be caring about all these other people, didn't you just say we need to stand on our square? We need to stand up and straighten our backs so people can't ride us? And now you're talking about we should be caring and looking out for all these other people? We did that for way too long. I'm jumping ahead because he hasn't said any of that yet. But you get, we all know Cornel West, and we know how he works. You know what he's going to say. You know how he's going to say it. But let's get there.
But we got too many black folk whose backs are weak, bent over, almost spineless sometimes. So they don't want to straighten up and fight and be fortified in that way. But once you do, you follow through on the Black national anthem, the Negro national anthem, which is lift every voice. Not lift every echo. Lift every voice. You can't find your voice like Coltrane unless you straighten your back up.
You said it the other day. I heard you say a lot of these black spokespersons, all they're doing is sharing an echo and expressing a silo.
Ooh, I said something like that, huh?
You said that. I heard. That's a quote from you, brother. That's I see that. And it's indicative of what's going on nowadays, because that seems to be the play that they give us. They give us black faces in high places, and then we've seen those people are just expressing echo chambers from whatever political party they belong to. This is why American Freedmen, Foundation of Black Americans is a lineage. We're really done with that type of symbolism, those gestures. The days of the symbolism and the gestures are over. People want tangible, we want benefits, we want resources, the same way we see everybody else receive. So that was an action.
Check out how our brother brought it back to us. He hadn't even got to the chance to take it to everybody else yet. But notice how Alpha is literally centering what this whole conversation must be about. Now watch the response and how Cornel West responds to him, not once, not twice, but you'll see. We're not going to play the full video because I actually want you guys to go and watch this video. It's called Lineage First, Conversation with Dr. Cornel West under the Black Alpha Network. But I am going to play a few of his responses to Black Alpha before we get into his campaign. So let's continue.
Statement that stood out to me because it's an echo, it's a silo, it's a the same thing. It's cookie cutter. It's a copycat. It's a clone. It's a diversion. It's everything to persuade us to go in different ways. And as you said, being scared. 9 times out of 10, these political parties, they don't ever tell us what they're going to do for us. They tell us to watch out for what someone else will do for us. And that ain't going to work politically. Like, you don't go to your job and say, don't pay me, just tell me what the guy across the street might do. That's not the way it works. You know, I vote, they give an exchange. They don't have to tell us about, well, that guy over there, that boogeyman is going to come get you if you don't vote for us. Or those bad people over there are going to come get you if you don't vote for us. And that's been the reality for American freedmen for 60 plus years. And this is why a lot of us are starting to look towards third party candidates. This is why we're looking towards independent. This is why we're stepping away from the Democratic plantation and the Republican plantation. I tell people, whether your plantation is painted in red or is painted in blue, it is still a plantation. So we have to get off that plantation, not just figuratively, but literally. And that's another question I want to ask you as we speak about that.
But just let that sink in.
Let simmer. Okay, we let that cook right there. Yes, sir.
James Lawson, who was was closest to Martin King, he was one invited King actually to come to Memphis right before he was
right.
Yes, James Lawson, a great man. He's still alive, 95 years old. But he came out with a book last year on that had to do with plantation capitalism.
Plantation
capitalism. Your analysis really coincides with his thing of plantation capitalism. So you got.
Now notice, we're talking about foundational Black Americans, and Brother Alpha made it very clear what time we're on. But he took everything that Brother Alpha said, and before Brother Alpha could ask the question, what did he say? Ooh, let's let that simmer for a second, because he knew he was about to make it about something else, which he did. How many seconds did he wait before he made a statement about capitalism? He didn't wait not 2 seconds before he starts speaking about plantation capitalism, which has nothing to do with the conversation in which we're speaking on. Which has nothing to do with the situation at hand. We are the capital as Black Americans in America. That is what it is. It's always been that. We've always been the capital in America. So don't bring me some socialist book when we're sitting here discussing what time we are on. And that's what he just did. Let's continue.
The 1% at the top that has all this money, that has the ability to create these huge plantations and then invites people in, and people think they're really free because they're making some good money. They might be living relatively well and so forth, but they still scared and intimidated to speak the truth, and they scared and intimidated to really fight for justice for poor and working people. They might fight for justice for their fellow folk in the middle classes, but we talking about justice for poor and working people.
Yes.
Poor and working people. We're speaking about foundational Black American freedmen, but he's talking about poor and working people. You're having a conversation with a Black American freedman, but you're talking about poor and working people. You see what I'm saying here? You see what I'm saying here? Let's continue.
A different thing.
Yes, sir.
We want justice across the board, but you always begin with the least of these. That's Harriet Tubman. That's Malcolm. That's Martin King. That's A. Philip Randolph. That's Marcus Garvey. That's Toni Morrison. They always looked at the world through the lens of those who were catching the most hell. That's crucial. That's fundamental. I mean, this book.
Now he says this, but also gloss over the fact that he's literally telling the people who catch the most hell on this planet to accept and look out for all these other people who join in on the hell that we catch as people on this planet. What kind of sense does that make? These people be speaking nonsensical and they bring it to you like it's some real gold.
Yeah, I know your people already know this book.
You already know. Yes, indeed. Reparations all day. Lineage.
Yeah, go ahead.
For those who want to know what book he's speaking about, it is a book called From Here to Equity. Okay? From Here to Equity, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. That's the name of the book.
This brother Sandy, I just had a wonderful dialogue with him on Tim Black, but I've known him for 45 years or so. We've been part of the reparations movement that long. But this book lays it out.
Yes, sir.
With all the data, all the evidence, all the argument.
Wait a second. Did he just say he was a part of the reparations movement for so long? Hold on. Let's run that back.
Already know this book.
You already know. Yes, indeed. Reparations all day. Lineage.
Yeah, go ahead. This brother Sandy, I just had a wonderful dialogue with him on Tim Black, but I've known him for 45 years or so, because we've been part of the reparations movement that long. But
he said they have been a part of the reparations movement for 45 years plus. I've already shown you guys, right, how he believed in his book. He wrote that social programs would be more beneficial than reparations. So what in the world is he talking about? What in the world is he speaking about? I literally went over that with you guys. So what the hell is this man talking about? We've been a part of the reparations movement for almost over 45 years. Then why the hell don't we have reparations? Because that hasn't been the case. No one's been speaking about reparations for no damn 45 years. Not on the level that we're speaking about it. And the ones who have spoken about reparations has been taken off of this planet. So what is this man talking about? 45 years we've been in this reparation movement. These people live in a psychosis. And they want you to live there with them. Let's continue.
book lays it out.
Yes, sir.
With all the data, all the evidence, all the argument, and in the name of truth and justice. That's the important thing. But isn't it something, though, man, that you can't get one black politician critical of the Israeli genocidal attack on Palestinians?
Yeah. That just happened. We're speaking about foundational Black Americans and the issues we have in a country that we built. And not only do you try to make it about socialism versus capitalism, but then you want to talk about, ain't it a shame we can't find one leader to stand up, one black leader to stand up, to talk about what the genocide going on in Gaza? That's not our business. That's not where our attention is focused, and we're not going to focus our attention there. Our attention is focused right here on our tangibles, on our reparations, on our policies, okay? And this is the stuff that I'm talking about. With Cornel West and with all of them, we're having a distinct conversation about the lineage here that built the country. But yet you want to sit here and divert all the energy and all the attention over to Gaza. No, not at all. And I noticed when I was doing the research on his campaign and the things that he's claiming he will do under his campaign, I noticed that he had a town hall right here in Houston. And unfortunately, I missed that town hall because he had two of them, and they were both on the same day. One of them he did at 3, and the other one was like 7 p.m. in Sugarland, which is absolutely closer to me than where he was doing it in Houston. I'm closer to the Sugarland side. But the one that he was doing in Sugarland, I noticed that it was at a mosque. And what I thought to myself was, if I was like those people, disrespectful like those people, I would go into the mosque screaming about reparations like they did at Mother Emanuel's church. But one, the event had already passed. And two, we don't get down like that. We got enough power in our voice. We can stand anywhere and bring attention to the topic in which we speak on. But it was just a thought in my head that said, damn it, if we were as disrespectful and uncompassionate as everyone else, we could just start going into these mosques when they have these type of candidates and stuff like that come to their mosque as well, the same way they did with Joe Biden and the Mother Emanuel Church. Just a thought. Let's continue.
It's just a sad thing, though, man. We reached such a low point.
Notice our brother Alpha was like, oh, no. He already knew. He was like, oh, no, we ain't going there. Watch him bring it back to us.
Of the Israeli genocidal attack on Palestinians. It's a sad thing, though, man. We reached such a low point that we can see genocide on television and can't have one major black voice because so many of them are paid off, so many of them are sold out, so many of them have given up on telling the full truth and therefore find themselves in a bind. And when you're in a bind like that, what happens? You get exposed.
Just like you're getting exposed right now. See, what gets me is that he's saying you don't have one major black leader to stand up to talk for Gaza. What major Palestinian leader has stood up and spoke up for black Americans in the genocide that we face in America every day? The UN came to America, did a study, and came back, and the study said that black Americans are going through a form of genocide on American soil, and America owes black Americans reparations. I didn't hear anybody breathe boo about it. I didn't see not one Palestinian leader stand up. I ain't see one Jewish leader stand up. I ain't seen one African leader stand up. I ain't seen one goddamn Australian leader stand up. Who are these people that we are in an imaginary love ship with? Because from what I've seen, everybody around the world hate us. With a passion, hate us. So why in the hell would we need to be the people that have to stand up? And he was just talking about straightening out your back. so other people can't ride your back. But yet, we gotta hunch over once again to be a strong voice for a bunch of people that ain't been a voice for us at all, who comes to our communities and take funds out of our communities, who comes to America to benefit off of the slave labor that we produced, and then to continue the detriment. They get liquor stores and all these other things, Walmarts at our neighborhoods, and then take that money out of our neighborhoods and take it to their neighborhoods, and then take it from their neighborhoods and spend it with the napkin people. So who? Sound like an owl, I gotta do it again. Who are you trying to convince we should be speaking up for them? Who?
The veil gets ripped off. You know what I mean? I know Brother Cat Williams been talking about 2024 as the year of truth.
Peeling them layers back, ain't he? Peeling them layers back.
Peel the layers back. Now, I don't believe any of us have monopoly on truth, because I believe all of us are crack vessels. All of us got faults and foibles and everything. But you can still raise your voice, and you can still tilt your life and behavior toward truth and justice.
Yes.
Nobody's going to be pure and perfect and pristine. Nobody's free of spot or wrinkle, as the old pastors used to say. But
I'm trying my hardest to keep it together, guys. Trying my hardest to keep it together. Don't worry. It was just a brief intermission, because I know that our brother Alpha is going to bring it back to us. I'm just trying to make it through the sands of the desert without water, and it is painful. Let's continue.
orient your life in that way. Well, see, 2024, my brother. Oh, how'd you put it? You peeling off those layers?
Peeling them layers on back. Exposing the real. Done in the dark, come to light. We shine in the light.
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about, brother.
That's what the Black grassroots movement has really been pushing. And if you notice, it's been changing the world. I tell people all the time, there is a revolution going on. There's a renaissance going on, and it's the Black grassroots. It just shows you that when you put us all together, you put our minds together, our thoughts, and the way we process things, everything changes. There's not been anything that our lineage, heritage, or culture has not put our minds towards, and we have done. When we're on code, we're undefeated, you know? So I tell people right now, I said, there's a new wave, and it's a new momentum, and it's lineage based, and it is sweeping across the whole country, and it's based upon the Black grassroots. It's being birthed out of the Black grassroots. It is the American freedmen and foundational Black Americans, and that's all intertwined. That's all is one. We are foundational Black Americans, meaning we are foundation to this land because we built this country, because we are the notion. I always tell people like this, and the best way I always put it, I say, and this is my whole giddy up, I say, we are foundational Black Americans, foundation to this country because we built it, and we are natives to this country. And when you put our lineage, heritage, and culture together, we're undefeated. You can look at us, we're the only non-immigrant and non-deportable people in this country. We started this, we are the architect. I always say, not day 3, 4, 5, not day 2, day 1. And when you put us...
Boom. And he's going to continue. I'm going to let him finish. But I want to gear you guys up, cue you up for the next one coming up. Because notice how our brother said we're the only non-deportable and native to this land. And native to this land. Watch how he tries to switch it up and talk about the Mongoloid. And our brother has to reel him back in. Check it out.
Together, we get stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's what's sweeping across the country. We took the term African American and we replaced that with foundational Black American. And that's not a slight to African Americans, because an African American is an African who came here from Africa. You understand what I'm saying? Well, we built this. So we've been on this lineage-based reparations movement, and we've been focusing on lineage-based things because what we see is they use trick words to confuse us. They use trick words to take us out of where we are. And what we've been doing now is going strong. So yes, we are foundational Black Americans. We're foundational because we built this land. We're foundational because we're native to this land. We're the only non-immigrant and non-deportable people here. We are lineage, heritage, and culture. We took the term African out, placed the term foundational in, because an African American is an African who moved here from Africa. We didn't move here, we grew here. We didn't fly here, we reside here. We didn't come here, we're from here. So that foundational Black American lineage, heritage, and culture movement is sweeping the whole country. That FBA flag is waving high in that FBA sky, bro. It's a beautiful thing. You dig it?
Wow.
Our brother broke it down so elegantly. And Cornel West, he's gonna, glorify him, because that's what he does. But then he's going to try to walk into, like I said, that mongoloid talking point. But let's just give a round of applause to Black Alpha. Wait. Where's the button? There we go. There we go. A round of applause to our brother, the Black Alpha Network. Y'all just heard the whole soundboard, don't worry. Not the whole soundboard. Y'all heard the majority of the soundboard. But it's been a while since I've pressed any of these buttons, so bear with me, okay, guys? Just know that I meant to give the round of applause. All right. So to Black Alpha. Now, let's hear the response.
Wow, no, indeed, though, brother. Now, I saw you speaking before, it was a committee or something. What was that? Was that a city council or something like that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir. Reparations.
Where was that, though, brother?
I was in Atlanta, Fulton County, Georgia. I drove 4 hours to talk for 2 minutes. I believe I gave a speech of the year that year. We're going to give another one this year. But yeah, I spoke on reparations and just waving that flag of reparations, because that's what it's all about. This is what the general consensus has been, is about us getting lineage-based reparations and taking care of what we can take care of. But at the same time, it's a debt that is belonging to us. So they owe the debt. They got to cut the check. And that's what a lot of brothers and sisters have been doing. That's why we are approaching all candidates. And that's one of the reasons I want to bring you on to see your stance on reparations for foundational Black American freedom.
Oh, you see, I was blessed to sit at the feet of Queen Mother Moore. Queen Mother Moore is one of the greatest figures when it comes to the history of the struggle for reparations. She was also known as the mayor of Harlem. In Harlem on 123rd Street, New York City, you see. And that's true all the way through Randall Robertson. Randall Robertson founded Trans-Africa, wrote that book, The Debt, which is another classic on reparations, The Debt, that he just passed. He just died. He left America in exile. He didn't want to live in America no more. He went to the Caribbean, but he just recently died. He's a magnificent freedom fighter that came out of Richmond, Virginia. So I've been blessed to be part of reparations movement for over 40-some years, and I think that it's coming into its own. It's getting a little weak versions, in California, New York, people trying to appropriate it, but we need it from the grassroots. It's got to come from the bottom up, so that the voices of the people are not just heard, but they shape the destiny in that way. And that's
now, I would agree with him 100% on that. And that right there was literally, this moment is where he starts to lose people. Okay, because what he said is absolute there. It has to come from the grass up, got to come from the ground up. It can't come from the up to the bottom. It can't come from the top to the bottom, because at the top they don't have our best interests at heart. So they're going to try to do everything to water down and bastardize our reparations. So we have to be there. And shout out to everybody who's making it out to these task force and these town halls on reparations. An applause go out to y'all too. We have to be there in order to make sure things like in California doesn't happen where they switch up after they pass whatever they pass. Now they want to switch it up and switch up what is going to be in the package. Or you have somebody like Dr. Amos, Reverend Amos, Rev Flip Flop, like I like to call him, on the board talking about, oh, don't give reparations to the people, just give $5 million to the NAACP. Just give the NAACP that money. Just give us that money. Let's continue.
Fundamental. But you know what, when you were talking about foundational, you tell me what you think about this, because I resonate with you about 98.5%.
Notice I resonate with you about 98.5%. Okay, so that 1.5% is what?
But I do want to save a place for indigenous peoples and their land. Mm-hmm. Because when you say that we're the only, we didn't come voluntarily, and that we're the foundation of the country, you are absolutely right in terms of the economic foundation, in terms of the cultural foundation, and so forth. But what we didn't provide was the land, and the land was
if you don't shut the hell up. I refuse to believe that Cornel West is so ignorant that he didn't know that the Mongoloid wasn't the original Native American here. This man is a schooled and ordained and vetted college professor. I believe he has tenure. And you're telling me that you didn't know that the Mongoloid wasn't here before the African? You're telling me that you didn't know that the Olmecs, the Amazonians, and all that were Afrocentric? Come on, man. I kind of feel like he's playing with our intelligence on that one. I really do.
Stolen because of indigenous peoples being pushed out. That was genocidal. There was millions and millions and millions of indigenous people, and now
here's one of the things.
And before my brother go off, because he's gonna go off, I want to say this: they're getting reparations. They're getting everything that the treaty demands of the United States of America, and they refuse to allow us the same amenities because the treaty was supposed to but it was supposed to apply to not just them, but to us as well. It was them who fought to make sure that Black Americans didn't have to get what they were getting. It was them. And every time they get an endowment, like this last year, well, I don't want to say last year, it was last year. Okay. Last year, the largest endowment that they've ever received in history. When they receive these endowments, not one of them, not one tribe says, what about the Black American? Not one tribe. As a matter of fact, when they go back begging for more money, I don't want to say begging, demanding more money. Let's put it like that. Sometimes begging. When they go to get more funds, they never bring up Black Americans. They never bring up freedmen. Especially when you think about the 5 civilized tribes who owned slaves 100 years after slavery was abolished. It took an act of the FBI going onto their land to force them to release those slaves. But yet, you want to keep the door open for them. Do you see the nonsense, people? The nonsensical bull stuff that comes out of these people's mouths. But watch our brother work.
Us, who are foundational Black Americans, are indigenous people. So
that's true too.
That's the main point.
See, he wasn't looking for that. He didn't know that was going to come and hit him in the chin. We're indigenous too. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. And what our brother Alpha say? No. That's the main point. That's the main point. Pay attention. Stay on topic. Stay on topic. Stop trying to make it about everybody else. We are those natives who had this land before they came over here and gave SARS or whatever else, smallpox, using blankets and stuff like that. The majority of the Native Americans, the indigenous people that were killed off, were Afrocentric. That is a fact. And they used to use the red natives to track down the black natives. That's another fact. That is another fact. So this man's sitting here with this nonsense. He's sitting there with this nonsense. Let our brother get back to it.
Point. You know, we are, in terms of foundational Black Americans, indigenous, native, and we came to the slave trade. When the slave trade came, that was about the third wave of us. The indigenous people that we speak of, they typically give us the red Indian, the more of the Pocahontas look. But here's the kicker. There's Black Native Americans, and you can go down to Louisiana, Mississippi right now. That's why we all grew up as Black people, and we were all told that we had Indian in us. Grandma wasn't lying. Great-grandpa weren't lying. So we ended up getting intermixed with them, but they ended up really getting our sole political identity. In terms of them, they've also had reparations, multiple ones, pre-college, school, tuition, reservations. I've been on reservations. They've been served based on their native indigenous status. We've been ignored and denied based on our original indigenous status. So this is why we take the term foundational.
Oh, I see.
Native, the indigenous, the slave trade, all across the board. Our blood on this soil is pure as day. And this is why we are saying foundational Black American, because we're letting everybody know there's 3, 4, 5 waves of us. But we are here today and we coming to get the check. Dr. Martin Luther King said it best. They always tell us about when Dr. Martin Luther King said he had a dream. Well, his dream has been clear that he also said, we're going to Washington and we're coming to get our check. And I sat down with our good brother, across the way, but I went to a reparations rally hosted by my good brother, Tariq Nasheed. And it was the biggest reparations rally in American history. And it was about foundational Black Americans coming to get our check. And we held signs up, we played the audio, and it was based on the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King. So foundational Black Americans, Dr. Martin Luther King, who's a foundational Black American, we all agreed that we are coming to get our check. And this era is strong, my brother.
No, but brother, I love it.
Now watch how this man tried to play it like he just learned something. Dr. Claude Anderson has been talking about this for how many years? He said he's been in the reparations movement for 45 plus years. So how are you acting as if you don't know this? Our brother schooled this college professor, this Dr. Cornel West. Do you see how ludicrous that sounds? Not Not saying that Brother Alpha isn't intelligent enough to school him. Brother Alpha is well qualified. What I'm saying is, it doesn't make any sense to hear a man say, "You schooled me," but the background that he brought to the table, you would assume if you been in a reparations movement for over 45 years plus, this wouldn't be new information to you. This is what I'm saying. This is why it sounds ludicrous. Not the fact that Black Alpha don't have the credentials. Black Alpha is well versed in this stuff. But the problem comes in, you claim that you've been in this reparations movement for 45 years plus. You claim you've been speaking for us for 45 years plus. So this is a problem. Either you're lying to our faces, or you were the part of a movement that you fully didn't understand, and so you couldn't advance that movement. That's what this is. Let's continue.
You are teaching me. Of course, I want to just thank you again how you instructed and inspired me. But I was thinking also you were talking about that first wave of the species making their way into this hemisphere where the species itself emerges out of Africa. And so all of us in that sense are African, but you're going to say more.
Yes, sir. And that's the thing. We always acknowledge our descendants from being Africans, but it's more of a distant descendant. And that's about race. And we're speaking nationality. We're talking about ethnicity. We're talking about lineage and heritage, where when you have people who are descendants from Italy, they just consider them Caucasians or white, and they're just flat Americans. When you start talking about the Scottish man, he's just an American. When it comes to us, we tend to put African in the continent above our nationality. So therefore, whenever we have a national claim like reparations, they don't want to give it to us, or they want to disperse it amongst anybody else. So that's why we put the term foundational, and it's just a specific term. It's not a slight to anyone, but it's just specifying and making a distinction politically. The same way where a Puerto Rican who has claims from Puerto Rico, he doesn't just go under all Hispanics, or a Mexican doesn't go under all Hispanics. A Mexican who comes here from Mexico, they may have specific needs for them as an actual ethnicity. Same with a Puerto Rican, a Venezuelan, someone from Nicaragua. It's the same thing. And even when you go to the continent of Africa, the Senegalese, the Zimbabweans, the Nigerians, they all will tell you that we're all Africans, but we are different people with different tribes, different backgrounds. So it seems like with us, nationality tends to get brushed to the side and we focus on race. We all admit and we all acknowledge that everybody is from Africa, but that's from a racial standpoint. From a nationality, ethnic lineage standpoint, we put the emphasis on foundational Black American, and it's also our status of American freedmen. So it's the same thing, American freedmen. No one ever says that we're African freedmen. We say American freedmen, people who can be traced back to slavery, which is very distinctive. We got a distinct culture from hip hop to music to food to all the elements that make America such a great country. It goes back to those American freedmen, which nowadays we combine the two of them, American freedmen and foundational Black American. We use those interchangeably. So it's just a lineage movement. It's a heritage movement. No.
My apologies, family. I received a phone call, and since I am playing through my phone, that happened. But let me go back and let my brother finish talking.
Back to those American freedmen, which nowadays we combine the two of them, American freedmen and foundational Black American. We use those interchangeably. So it's just a lineage movement. It's a heritage movement. No slight to anybody else, but at the same time, everybody else can be who they are. And now we're saying, well, let us be who we are, nationality and ethnicity wise. But we do not denounce any form of being Black. We don't denounce any form of being descendants of Africa, but we are immediate indigenous to the United States of America. Does that make sense, brother?
No, but I just love that deep sense of humanity, and I love that deep commitment to love and justice for ourselves and for anybody across the board. Because one of the
once again, took it to somebody else, somewhere else. love for ourselves and anybody across the board. No, it's not love for ourselves and anybody across the board. It's love for ourselves and love for ourselves some more. That's what it is. I'm coining that term today. I'm gonna have it on a t-shirt by the next goddamn broadcast. It is not loving ourselves and everyone else across the board. It's loving ourselves and loving ourselves some more. Let me be very clear with that. Very clear.
Gifts of Black people to the modern world has been not only our spirit, not only our artistic creativity, but it's been our moral embrace of others who suffer, even as we come to terms with our own suffering.
Yes, sir.
That's what it means to be a wounded healer rather than a wounded herder. You see, if you get wounded and all you're gonna do is just spread more wounds, then you're not ascending to a higher moral and spiritual greatness.
Who the hell said that we gotta be the most moral people on the planet? I wanna know, who was it who came out and said Black Americans has to be the most moral people on the planet? Everybody else out here running around with guns and knives and cutting and shooting everybody. Us more specifically. But the second we pull out a knife, this man will have you to believe that no, brother, we don't want to be like them. We got to keep our higher moral ground. Damn that. What good is having the higher moral ground when those people don't give a damn about morals? Tell me that. What good is keeping a higher moral ground when people do not care about morals? So they can just hurt you as much as they want to hurt you, and because you're so morally sound, you're supposed to just let it wash off your back and still love them. That's that slave mentality bull stuff. That's that mentality we left back when Obama left office. Once he showed us what that slave mentality had us voting for, we left that back in 2012. The hell you mean loving every... Man, makes no sense. We gotta keep the highest moral ground while everybody else beat our heads in. What kind of nonsense is that? That's the one thing that I did not agree with the whole non-violent situation. I was the Malcolm X. Damn non-violence, you get violent with me, I'm getting violent back, and we're gonna be violent in this bitch together. I'm not gonna get hit over the head and say, I still love you. But everything happened for a reason. That's fine. But my point is this: I'm not about to sit here and hold this high moral ground as my neighborhoods and my communities are being demolished, excuse me. And it's diabolical for anybody to say that we should be.
This of Black people has been that our leaders, our mothers, our fathers, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, at their best, have always tried to aspire to a moral and a spiritual greatness while loving themselves.
Yes, sir.
You see, and that includes the blackness, that includes the skin color, that includes the nose, that includes the hips, that includes everything. But it doesn't have to put others down. It loves ourselves and then moves toward love and justice. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
First and foremost, Black folks don't go around putting people down. People go around putting Black people down. What are you talking about, Cornel West? This is one of the reasons why it is very hard for me to listen to this man. it is very hard for me to listen to this man for long periods of times because this man be saying some of the most nonsensical bull stuff. But he thinks he makes it sound good because he throw in Sly Stone and doing it with soul. Let's continue.
That's a very beautiful thing. And if you look, as we say, in terms of American freedmen, think about it. We fought in every single war in this country. We fought in the Revolutionary War that created America. We fought in the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, both Iraqi wars, Afghanistan war. We did things for America in this country where we couldn't even walk down the street and, not be harassed. We couldn't even go get a hamburger. Remember, Muhammad Ali said it best. He said he went to go get a hamburger, and this is a gold medalist. And they said, no, you get out of here. But he still served the United States of America in a proper way. I think Floyd Mayweather said it best. He said when he goes fights for the Olympics, he's fighting as a Black American. They don't say Floyd, the African American. They say he's the foundational Black American, or just the American in general. And look also what we've done in terms, even in Africa. Just so this to your point about how we have that love for people. We fought for so many movements in Africa. You can look at the apartheid situation. Back in the early 90s, it was what's the word, Johannesburg. And that was spoken in English.
Oh, indeed.
And we were the ones representing. We sent freedom fighters. Vietnam, the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party assisted the Vietnamese. So our history and rich tradition.
Notice how he gets excited when you bring up something that has to do with jazz, something that has to do with our culture. Gil Scott-Heron, and shout out and salute to our brother. But notice, he took that as a cue up, a layup for him to get going. But our brother Black Alpha kept it pushing, kept talking, and kept correcting.
So many movements in Africa. You can look at the apartheid situation. Back in the early 90s, it was what's the word, Johannesburg. And that was spoken in English.
Oh, indeed. That's Gil Scott-Heron.
We sent freedom fighters. Vietnam, the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party assisted the Vietnamese. So our history and rich tradition as foundational Black Americans and American freedmen of assisting everybody else and just showing them love that a lot of times we never got in return. That shows you, as we speak of, the moral compass of us. So we move morally strong, and we make everyone clear that we have nothing but self-pride and self-interest. But at the end of the day, what we do is our lineage, heritage, and culture. Typically, it shows the world how to move. Because if you look now, there's a lot of reparations movements based on people watching us.
I said earlier that Black people don't get down like that when I was speaking about going to the mosque that Cornel West was speaking at and talking about reparations. And that's a moral thing. When I said that would be disrespectful and we don't get down like that, that's a moral thing. So even in a situation where we're speaking up for ourselves, we're still doing it in a moral way. We're not putting people under the bus. They keep trying to put us under that mother lover. While singing, the wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round. And this man feels as if we should be just so loving and caring to everybody and have their backs and be the most moral. While all these people are rolling over us with steamboats, rolling over us with tanks, rolling over us with, I don't know, what else rolls? Mack trucks. They're rolling over us, and this man wants us to believe that we should be the highest of the moral standards when we're already the highest of the moral standards in everything, in every which way we move, talk, speak, and everything else. That's us. It's the rest of the world that's been sitting here disrespecting the Black American. It's the rest of the world. The Black American community has tried to build community with all these other communities, these other cultures. And each time they show us their backsides, whether it's the Palestinians, the Asians, the Hispanics, we have no friends. We have no friends. And Cornel West should understand that if he's been in the reparations field for 45 plus years. We have no friends. All we have is family, us. Us. And a lot of the times we ain't got that. We still gotta watch us. We still have to watch ourselves. So that's where I'm going to end the interview with Black Alpha. Shouts out to Black Alpha once again. Shout out to him for conducting this interview and just letting him speak. Just letting him speak, because he said a lot even though he ain't say nothing. So if you're thinking about voting for Cornel West, let's go over his campaign. Let's talk about what he says he will do, because he does have a reparations plan. But he also has a immigration plan. Let's go over it. All right, family and friends. So this is Cornel West's platform. There's a lot here. If you want to read it for yourself, please go to CornelWest2024.com. However, we're going to concentrate on a few things here. Wow. Health justice. Remove transgender exclusion limitations from all healthcare policies. So, excuse me. So it seems like, he's trying to touch on every area when it comes to, I guess you could say, all the people. But let's see what we got here. Racial justice. Notice it says racial justice, not justice for foundational Black Americans, not justice for Black Americans, not reparative justice for the descendants of slaves, racial justice. But let's read into it. Reparations to address the unpaid debt to Black U.S. residents. Okay. One, you can't just put to Black U.S. residents, because not everybody who's Black in the U.S. comes from the lineage of the American slave. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So basically what you're saying is you're going to give reparations to anybody Black. That's what you're basically saying. Number two, directive to complete the reparations process and findings within 2 years. 2 years so that checks can be cut and sent to eligible recipients. I don't know why the hell I said representative, but recipients. Let me read that again. Directive to complete the reparations process and findings within 2 years so checks can be cut and sent to eligible recipients. And to be honest with you, that is something that we in the Black media call the new Black media. We call that how do I say this? Stall tactic, basically. Within 2 years, why not cut a check on day one? Why not put in a policy on day one, right, that sends out a down payment to the descendants of American slaves? And then within that 2 years, you can hash out how you're going to do the programs, policies, and all the other stuff within that 2 years. So that Black Americans aren't just dying on a branch of the tree somewhere. Like, it doesn't make sense to say, oh yeah, we're going to do this, but within 2 years, we'll get it done so you can start cutting checks. No, we already know what needs to be done. You need to cut that check as soon as you get up in there. And yes, there can be more, but there needs to be a down payment. And then within that 2 years, we see policy flowing. We see all kind of things that benefit the Black community flowing within those 2 years. And then at the end of that 2 years, the whole situation on funding should be absolute, and then you cut another check. And that's the thing with the reparations task force. Whatever you do, you gotta accompany that with a check. And even when we were talking about down payments to these committees, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're speaking on. So no, within 2 years, 2 years could be 2 years too late, according to this economy. 2 years could be 2 years too late. Push Congress to pass filibuster-proof budget reconciliation for reparations and land back provisions in line with the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. End mass incarceration and codify voting rights for all incarcerated people, and immediately reinstate voting rights for all returning citizens. All returning citizens. All incarcerated. All returning citizens. All incarcerated people. Once again, that shouldn't even be a part of racial justice. It shouldn't be a part of the reparations at all, because that doesn't benefit us directly. It benefits others. And people want to say, well, it does benefit us because there's a lot of Black people in jail that would help. None of that matters. The second that you give someone else that as well is no longer reparations. That policy may help Black Americans, but that policies isn't geared toward Black Americans. That's the difference. That's the difference. If it was geared toward Black Americans, if the policy says we're going to end mass incarceration for Black Americans, and we're going to make sure all those people that were incarcerated from the Black community regain their voting rights, then that would be directly for the Black community. Because then you're not just going in jail, pulling out anybody and everybody under this bill. Address the disproportionate mortality rates of Black pregnancies. How are you going to address that? You would have to have a complete overhaul of the healthcare system. And I'm all for it. But I want you to say how you're going to do something. When I interviewed Sheila Jackson Lee, I might not have liked her answer, but at least she came with the how she was going to do the things that she was suggesting. And this is what it is. So I would want to know what you would do to address the disproportionate mortality rates for Black women. What kind of policy would you pass to make sure that this wouldn't be happening? Let's move on. Require public review commissions for every police force in the nation. And I am sick and tired of these review boards and all this other stuff. If you really want to end police brutality, if you really want to end police brutality against Black Americans, you take that cop's pension. Any cop found to be guilty for doing X, Y, and Z now must have their pension removed and given to the families. The police station is now open for a lawsuit. And if there was corruption, everyone involved is hit with a lawsuit or hate crime. That's what we need. We need a hate crime bill. And we need police accountability. I don't care about an oversight committee, because that oversight committee at the end of the day could say he did nothing wrong, while the eyes of millions and millions of Americans watch this person unalive somebody in our community. While these illegals are able to come in, break the rules, and then fight cops. Hell, there's this one story that I was reading earlier today, and I'm going to bring it to you guys later, where this migrant 16-year-old, 15-year-old was caught stealing, and he pulled out a gun and started shooting people in the store. The cops pull up, he pulls his gun on a cop, starts shooting at get into a shootout with the cops. The police find him, and him and his mother starts crying like he did nothing wrong. But we as Black folk, the police have no problem putting a bullet in us and ending our lives for stuff that's way less, if at all. If at all. Reinstate Section 4B and Section 5 of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Establish a land back commission to explore and address brutal land theft from attempted genocide of and broken treaties with indigenous peoples. That has nothing to do with us, but I guess that's why he threw that in racial justice. Because the truth of the matter is, like we already shown earlier, he got owned when he brought up these indigenous people. Those so-called indigenous, they're not indigenous. They're not indigenous, they're mongoloids. But the mongoloid was brought up and it got shut down. But I want y'all to know, he's trying to give them their land back. Full use of federal forces to investigate and end the epidemic of missing and murdered indigenous women. What the The murder and missing indigenous women, Black women and Black children come up missing at the highest rate of anyone in the country. Why in the world? Why in the world All right, I'm just gonna tip to get through this last one. Codify the Justice for Black Farmers Act for immediate execution, which is something that does need to happen. It is something that does need to happen. Now, I want to move down here. Oh yeah, there's LGBTQAIA plus justice as well. But y'all can read that on your own time. Immigration justice. Let's go here. Massive investment in transforming immigration policies to create a broad legal pathway for residency that centers compassion, morality, dignity, and ethics. Massive investments in transforming immigration policies to create a broad legal pathway for residency that centers compassion, morality, dignity, and ethics. In crimes against humanity for migrants and their families. No separations of families. No children in cages. Well, if they wasn't coming here illegally, there wouldn't be any separations of families, because then the adults wouldn't be put in jail and the children wouldn't be separated from their families. That's what happened. That's what happened. And the children's in cages, that was Obama. That had nothing to do with this. But still, this is what happened. They illegally crossed the border because they didn't want to wait on the proper channels for a pathway to citizenship. So what are you talking about? Cut red tape that delays legal pathways to citizenship and permanent residency. Permanent residence. Accountability for the U.S. role in exacerbating the migrant crisis. That's not the U.S. role. That's Joe Biden that exacerbated the migrant crisis. What are you talking about? He created it. Under Trump, I think it was 500, about little under 600 people coming in by the day. Now you have more than 5,000 people coming in through the border daily. So what are you talking about? Accountability for the U.S. role in exacerbating the migrant crisis? That's Joe Biden who exacerbated the goddamn migrant crisis. Let's make that very clear. Abolish ICE and demilitarize the southern border. This is who is running as a black candidate. This is who's running as a black candidate for the presidency of the United States. Enforce international and national laws that allows for asylum seekers to enter the country without delay or prejudice. You want to enforce those laws, but you don't want to enforce the law that's supposed to keep them out. We got laws on the books that are not being enforced. But what you want to do is abolish ICE, so-called demilitarize the southern border, and then just give a citizenship to anybody who crosses the border. And this is why I felt it was important, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters. And if the boys and girls are listening, boys and girls, this is why it was important for me to do this broadcast. Because a lot of people seem to like Cornel West in the black community. But if you're voting for Cornel West, you're voting for Biden times 10 when it comes to the immigration problem. Excuse me. When it comes to the invasion problem. You're voting for more of the same. So even if he had a good reparations plan, which he doesn't, there's some good points. Even if he had a good reparations plan, it means nothing because he's trying to destroy the country by just giving everybody, anybody, citizenship. Abolishing ICE, which means no more deportations. It makes no sense. So family, if you are choosing to vote for Cornel West, this is what you're voting for. You're voting for more of the same. More of the same. And I didn't even go through every single one of these. I'm pretty sure if I went through every single one of these, there would be problems out of each segment. But the first thing I wanted to look at and take notice of was his policy on reparations, or what he's calling racial justice, and his policies on the border, or what he's calling immigration justice. If you want to vote for the man, far be it from me to stop you from casting your vote. But if your number one issue with Biden right now is these migrants and the fact he won't pay reparations, and then you go to Cornel West and say, well, at least he's going to pay reparations. Yeah, he's also going to open the border to destroy the rest of our communities. That's what it is. Every study that's been done shows you and tells you why the black community is affected whenever this happens. And it also shows you that we are the only people that gets affected in this huge negative way. Whether it's in the economic areas, whether it's in the prison system, it just doesn't matter. These people still, literally, when they come in here, it hinders the black community. Look at this. I just noticed this. Ceasefire, cease all war funding and weapons to Ukraine and invest in peacemaking. Cease military funding to state of Israel. I'm with all that. The ceasing of funding and all that. Cool. In Israel, apartheid of Palestinian people, and press the UN to establish a program for Palestinian dignity and liberation. What kind of crap? Family, that's all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. With that being said, family, if you haven't hit that like button, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of Cornel West. Let me know what you think of his policies, his platform. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the interview that he did with our brother Black Alpha. And make sure you go and check out that interview in full at the Black Alpha Network. With that being said, family, like I said, there's only so much I can take of Cornel West. The doors of the church are now closed. Peace, family.